Do you need some better bass in your 2010 to 2019 Ford Explorer? Well, let's look at some options and ways to install that bass you need. From earbuds to portables, from automotive and marine to home audio setups, from movie theaters we visit to concerts we attend, JBL products can consistently be the source for audio we love to consume with the ears God gave us. Alright, so this video is going to include putting a new subwoofer in the stock location and also installing a new amp to power the sub. So if you're looking to put a whole new subwoofer enclosure in the back cargo area or something like that, this portion of the video with the amp install will still be relevant to you. Just my wife was not open to that, so we looked at options of putting a new sub in the stock enclosure. Okay, if you have the 500 watt Sony subwoofer, this is what it looks like. It is a dual voice coil subwoofer, so you can throw a single coil subwoofer in there and just hook up one of those terminals, but then you're only getting like 50 watts to the subwoofer, so thus the need for an external amp to drive the subwoofer. Now, if you didn't want to throw in an aftermarket 8-inch dual voice coil sub, you could do that. It's just not going to be a JBL. Pioneer makes a shallow mount dual voice coil 8-inch sub, but even it runs 250 watts RMS, so your 100 watt stock amp is not going to push that to its full potential. And this is a JBL channel, so we are just going to look at JBL options here with adding an external amp. All right, first up, as you see here, is a JBL Stage 8. You can get this around $90. Definitely a beefier magnet you see on the bottom there compared to the stock Sony. This will take 200 watts RMS and 800 watts max. Sorry for the shaky camera here. Get that better light. There you go. Nice magnet on it. Single voice coil for them. You see that hole in the magnet to help vent the voice coils. That helps keep it cool. It's got a 1.5 inch voice coil on it. Alright, and here's a better look at their profiles. You can see how much bigger the magnet is compared to the stock Sony. It also has a little more depth to it than the stock subwoofer, so you need a little bit of a spacer there. We'll get into that later. So the Sony weighs about 7 pounds 5 ounces. And we'll get the JBL on here. It's 9 pounds 7 ounces, so about 2 pounds heavier. And a lot of that's going to be from the bigger magnet. And specs have this sub going down to around 38 hertz. Alright, here's a spec sheet on these Stage subwoofers if you want to zoom in and see things like the X Max, which is 6mm on this one, or the enclosure volume needed for them. Okay, let's talk about the installation of an aftermarket sub and the factory subwoofer location. While it's not difficult, there are a few challenges to be aware of. The number one hurdle to get over is the depth of the stock subwoofer, and it's only 3.5 inches. So looking back at our spec sheet, the mounting depth for the 8-inch Stage subwoofer is 3 3/4 inches. So we're close, but over about 1/4 inch. And here's why that's important. See in the bottom of the stock Sony subwoofer, there's a screw hole. Well, they mount the subwoofer to the back and that little knob that sticks out right there. So when you stick your speaker in there, that's the point where it hits the back of the enclosure. So there's a little hole there you need to fill with something. I 3D printed that little piece, and you need to super glue it in because push pull, it'll pull it out. So super glue something in that hole. You know, something low profile that won't eat into the depth that your speaker needs. Okay, to get to the subwoofer enclosure, open your hatch, look at the back bottom area, the cargo hatch. There are 2 clips you can grab and twist counterclockwise 1 turn, and then that little piece will come off. Then you can grab that sill and pull it out. There's clips to hold it in. Okay, you may have a plug in the back of that sill, so unplug that before you can take the sill completely out. And on reinstall, you want to make sure you plug that back in, because if you don't, then your foot waving to open the hatch won't work, and my wife found that out quickly. Alright, and then there's a couple thumb screws to unscrew on that right side where the sub is. So unscrew those. And then one nice feature about this car, if you have this option, is the automatic seats. So stow those so you have room to get to the sub panel. All right, and then go around the passenger side, the back door, and lift that door sill up, and that'll allow you to pull that panel away from the side in the back, and then you can pull the whole panel away. And then there's 3 bolts to get the sub enclosure out. One at the bottom, one right there on the right, and then there's one back on the left, not there, up towards the top, right there. Okay, let's talk about how much room you have to install an aftermarket sub in this spot. So like I think I showed, you have about 3.5 inches in depth from the surface to the back of the subwoofer enclosure. And then from the top to the grill, the stock one has, you see there, a little over an inch. But I took a thin insulation rod and poked it through the hole in the grill to the top of the subwoofer enclosure. And I found there's a little under 2.5 inches of clearance. So that gives you about a total of 5.5 inches of room. So if you bring the subwoofer out on the top about 2 inches with spacers, you can have that 5.5 inches of depth and still be behind the stock grill. So I 3D printed a couple spacers to put behind the stage to get it out a little bit and get the clearance I needed. So this brought it out a little over an inch. So here it is, fully installed. Not the cleanest installation, and you can certainly buy spacers instead of 3D printing them. If you do, certainly use ABS so they don't melt in the hot car. So there definitely is some extra depth of mounting there. You don't have to go with a shallow mount sub, but you will need to get some spacers to bring it out a little bit. Okay, let's talk about installing the amplifier. So one of the most common places I think people install the amps in these cars is under the passenger seat. That seems to be where there's most room. Even though this is SUV, there's just not a lot of room to put some extra stuff. So, but under that passenger seat, you can do it. And that's where I installed mine. So my last video was a review of this amp, and I have it in my other car running a 10-inch Stadium sub and really like it. And so I thought I'd get another one to put in the Explorer and run against this Stage sub. Now that was not the best decision, and more on that in a minute. But installing this, again, the best place I think is under the passenger seat. Now running the power from the engine battery back through the firewall to the cabin is the biggest problem on these Explorers. You can search the forums, there's been a lot of people in discussion on it. There's a couple methods. First, you always have the option to just drill your own new hole through the firewall and grommet it and put it in there. So that's always an option if you want to do. Second, some guys lift up the carpet on the driver's side, and where the parking brake cable goes through the floorboard, there's a grommet there, and you can run the power underneath the car and through that. Then the third option is the option I went with, because I didn't really want to run the power cable underneath the car outside, you know, maybe where water and rocks could hit it. So I wanted to keep it kind of contained inside the vehicle if I could. So there is already a grommet coming through the firewall near the passenger's footwell. And this is kind of hard to get to. It'll take a little work, but this is the option I went to. There's a guy who has a great video explaining it all. You got to take the glove compartment out and maybe take a power unit out with 3 bolts, but you break them loose and they come out loose pretty easy. And it's way up in there, but you can another hole through that grommet and bring your power wire through. And I brought an 8-gauge power wire through. Here's showing the power from our engine bay and the fuse holder right there, 30-amp fuse, power wire going across the engine bay, and then get down in there, showing where that, you see where that red wire goes through the firewall, back in there, down in there. So that's where it is. So then just run the power under the carpet to the amp under the passenger seat. And I apologize, I don't remember where I grounded it, but you know, just find a bolt in the frame somewhere that's got good contact with bare metal. You may have to sand away some paint, but get it grounded there. And then run your line level inputs from the stock subwoofer. Remember, it's dual voice coil, so you only want to run one of those inputs, plus and minus, back to the amp as the input. And then run your speaker wires from the output of the amp back to the subwoofer. And then your hookup's complete. As far as mounting the amplifier, you can screw it into the floorboard if you really want to. As you can see from this image, the floorboard's not really even, so I 3D printed a little piece to go under it to keep it even. And then I mounted it to a plexiglass plate I have with some Velcro on the back to help keep it secure in the carpet. And then there's a lot of cord from the bass volume control that comes with it, so I tucked that extra cord into that little 3D printed cavity I made. So that worked out pretty well, but you can do whatever you want there, of course. Then I mounted the volume control in the center console area where we could get to it easily by just lifting up the armrest. All right, back to the Stage subwoofer that we installed first. I was happy with this sub, and it was definitely an improvement over the stock Sony sub for sure in terms of everything: output, depth, tightness, musicality, everything you'd want. So I was happy with this sub, but I made a critical mistake. I overmatched this sub with that Club A600 amp. As we discussed, the Stage 82 is rated at 200 watts RMS, 800 watts max. Well, the A600 amp is 350 watts RMS, and so that was too much for that Stage sub. I thought I could just keep the level down and it'd be okay. Well, it was not, and it damaged and blew the sub eventually. So the Stage 82 subwoofer had to come out of the car, and we needed to put something else in that's beefier, right, to match the amp. Well, of course, I have the Stadium 10-inch SSI sub in my other car, and why not put the 8-inch version in this car? So I went looking for a Stadium 8-inch sub. Well, the cheapest I could find the Stadium 8-inch sub was about $250, $259. And looking, the Infinity version of this sub, if y'all don't know, Harman bought Infinity, and now the Infinity line is basically the same exact speakers as the JBL line. Reference matches club level, and then their Kappa matches the Stadium level. So I found the Infinity 83 WD SSI sub for about $120. So I just could not pay the extra just to get the JBL version, although I'm a JBL fan, you know, but the Infinity sub was just the exact same sub, and I could get it for a lot less. So that's what we did. If you want to do the same thing, I certainly can't argue with you about that at all. That sub is a steal at $120 or even $149 in the stock Explorer enclosure. Unfortunately, this is a beefier sub, taller sub. Mounting depth is 5 1/3 inches, so a little more difficult to get in this stock Explorer enclosure. It's doable, but it takes a little more effort, and it creates another issue. That being, this sub has tremendous output and tremendous bass, and it's just creating some buzz as it rattles the Explorer's panels. So I'm still dealing with kind of getting that rattle out of them and getting it buzz free when we turn it up. But this sub sounds so good. It makes me wonder if maybe I should have gone with 2/8 instead of 110. But no, it really sounds so good. It's fast, it's tight, it's deep, it's so musical. We just love it. It's a fantastic sub, and of course it goes great with the rest of the Stadium components we have in the front and back of the Explorer. Okay, so to install this sub in that enclosure, you'll need a little more height to get it so that the magnet clears that little hump in the bottom of the enclosure. So I ordered 2 3¼ MDF sub speaker rings from Amazon and put those together. Now the top one is a little small for the sub to fit in, so it needs to be kind of routed out. So I routed out with my router. If you don't have a router, maybe find a friend or somebody that has one that can route out that inside for you. So what I do with the 2 rings is the bottom ring, I drill holes to mount to the subwoofer enclosure and on the speaker itself, and drill the screw all the way down through the top ring into that bottom ring to secure it. Okay, sorry I didn't get any sound clips of the Stage subwoofer before it blew, but I have some of the new Infinity Kappa / JBL Stadium 8-inch subwoofer. Here we go. Well, there you hear the JBL Stadium, or in this space, Infinity Kappa subs sound very well. They sound tight, musical, play deep and loud. Just great subs. I'm a big fan of those. So glad to have that in our car now. But there's your options for JBL sub upgrades in the Explorer. About $90, you can get the Stage. You should get the right amp to go with it, not like me. Or put the Stadium in there and get that Club A600 amp. Will drive it great. Just get your spacers in there to get the clearance for it, but not too much that it sticks out and hits the grill. But yeah, got some room to do that. So there you go. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I will be doing one more video on the Explorer, kind of wrapping it all together with all the Stadiums up front, in the middle, and the sub in back for a listen session. I know some of y'all requested that, so we'll do a quick video on that coming up soon. But this is kind of going to wrap up the install session of the JBL speakers in the Explorer. Although, are we ever done? Well, I may put the three-way option up front. We'll see. If we do, I'll show you that. But this about wraps that up. If you haven't subscribed, we'd love for you to subscribe. We're going to have a few more car installation videos on a Tesla 3 series of installing JBL speakers. And of course, all kinds of other JBL speakers that we just love. So please subscribe if you haven't. And as always, love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind, and love that neighbor as yourself. Until next time, JBL Life out.